Yes, it is that time again. It's cannabis news, everyone. I'm your host, Joe Klare. Excuse me. Little hiccup there. It is October 10th, 2019. I can start the show over and re-record this, but no. It adds character. That's just what I tell myself. Show, as always, is presented by the Marijuana Times. MarijuanaTimes.org is where you can find us. Click the video tab there to find the show. A lot of great articles. As well, today we're taking a look at states that could be legalizing marijuana or attempting to legalize marijuana in some form next year. Also, the trucking industry is taking a look at marijuana legalization. And we'll look at an op-ed about the need to talk about the cons of marijuana, as in pros and cons. I'll take apart that article, if you will. All that's coming up. First, of course, Cannabis News is brought to you by NatureSide, nature-side.com, and their organic, all-natural pesticides. Grow safe and poison-free. Don't use harmful chemicals or banned pesticides on what you are growing. Be regulatory compliant in the state you're growing in, whether it's cannabis or anything else. You can do so with NatureSide, nature-side.com, a proud sponsor of Cannabis News for over 500 episodes and counting. Thank you, NatureSide. This first story, if you will, is by yours truly. A look at states that could legalize in 2020. Of course, we've focused a lot, for a good reason, on the federal aspect of legalization. Next year, what's going to be able to move through Congress, if anything will get to President Trump's desk, etc. But also, of course, 2020, with a lot of state issues we'll be looking at when it comes to population and size. The biggest possibility at the ballot box is Florida attempting to legalize adult use cannabis at the ballot box. Make it legal Florida and regulate Florida are two organizations that seem to be on track to get enough signatures or to get it on the ballot. It remains to be seen. Make it legal Florida is well funded, has no home grow, as we've talked about before. So we'll see. Another critical battle is shaping up in Arizona. There's a lot of back and forth there. The Cannabis Chamber of Commerce in Arizona doesn't like what one of the groups in Arizona, Smart and Safe Arizona, the name escapes me. It's not in the article, but it's something like that. They don't like their initiative, so they're going to write their own. So a lot going on in Arizona for 2020. Of course, when it comes to the legislature, states like New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, talked a lot about legalization this year. They'll probably talk more about it next year. New Jersey, there's some rumors, there's some rumblings that a lame duck session before the end of 2019 might see an attempt at legalization. That remains to be seen. There's also attempts at adult use legalization. A couple groups in Arkansas are trying to get their measure before voters. Medical marijuana, states like Idaho, Mississippi, Nebraska, and South Dakota are attempting some medical marijuana initiatives. South Dakota is also a recreational legalization attempt underway. North Dakota, adult use legalization. They want to try to get their measure on the ballot in the summer of 2020, which would be June of 2020. So we'll see. Of course, we'll cover all of this next year as it comes up here in Cannabis News. We're here 5 days a week. That's what we do. We cover cannabis news. This next story is from fleetowner.com. Trucking wants to take marijuana head on. Well, I don't know if that's the best way to take marijuana. Ha ha. Am I right? Come on. That's a good one. You got to give me that. It's a solid wordplay. More than a quarter of Americans, the article begins, live in a jurisdiction that allows legal marijuana. Weed's growing popularity in the U.S. is an increasing and complicated concern for the trucking industry. America Trucking Associations is looking to take the lead in how the U.S. businesses adapt to legal weed, noting that there is more to learn about its effects. The ATA Board of Directors created new policies this week that calls for a common-sense approach to liberalizing marijuana laws in the name of safety. And since every state has different cannabis laws, ATA wants the federal government to change its approach. Well, I think, in the end, that's something we can all agree on, is that whatever your feelings about what the states are doing, they're doing it, and to clear up a lot of confusion and to kind of dot the T's and cross the I's, for lack of a much better phrase, that the federal government needs to let go of marijuana prohibition and let the states do what they need to do without the specter of the federal government hanging over them and causing problems every single step of the way. Harold Summerford Jr. is CEO of J&M Tank Lines. He told a luncheon crowd at the ATA's management conference and exhibition, quote, "We've got to get the federal people involved in this so we have uniformed impairment rules across our nation." Some of the ATA recommendations. They want the employers to retain the right to test for marijuana if they determine that use could adversely affect safety. They want federal restrictions on marijuana research to be lifted and more research on marijuana's impact on impairment, especially in conjunction with other substances. The ATA is also backing development of oral fluid testing and impairment standards, and is also calling for the creation of a marijuana victims compensation fund paid for by dispensaries, cultivators, and manufacturers. This is something we've heard before. And immediately there was a lot of problems with a marijuana victims compensation fund. Who controls the money? Who decides if this person's a victim? Who decides how much of a victim they are, therefore how much money they get? Who decides how much money needs to come into this fund? Who decides how much money each company or business needs to give? Who makes all these decisions? And why, in the end, do they get so much power and get to make all those decisions? It's an idea fraught with potential for corruption and abuse, which is exactly what it would become if we ever had something along those lines. If you just want to create your own fund and give people money, they say, hey, I'm a victim of marijuana, I have this problem, and you give them some money, by all means. If it's your money, give them as little or as much as you want. But I think the notion we're going to force private businesses to give to this fund administered by whoever, with certain unknown standards created by somebody else or the same person or a group of people, and that these businesses are going to be bound to pay these other people based on these standards. No. Just all of that. It's the last story. Not that anybody asked, but I am here. I have a show called Cannabis News. I have a microphone, so there you go. It's the last story. If you didn't want to know, you wouldn't be watching or listening. Now would you? KUOW.org. So the next story comes from. We need to talk about the cons of marijuana. And overall, this is a pretty long article. It's balanced somewhat. They go through a lot of the pros and the cons of marijuana. They talk to Peter Grinspoon, a physician at Harvard Medical School and director of Doctors for Cannabis Regulation, about a lot of this, which I suspect is where a lot of the fairness and balance came in. They talk a lot about the vaping problems. They also point out, a lot of unregulated marijuana is the cause of that. The need for more research, something we all agree on. Obviously, here's a couple. The article even starts out talking about how marijuana helps people with pain. I do have a couple problems with the article. Let me find the. Here we go. Yes, this is this paragraph right here. Yes, marijuana can ease pain. It can also make you vomit uncontrollably for months, experience psychosis, and change the way your brain matures. Okay. I have a kind of a problem with. We've talked a lot about the link between mental illness and psychosis and mental problems, marijuana use and mental illness, rather. And I even wrote an article that's up on marijuanatimes.org right now. It was posted today, on the day that I record this. And that's iffy. But even if you admit to all of those things in the second part of the two sentences I just read you, the second sentence, rather, even if you admit all that, the way it's written makes you think that they're equal. That, well, on the one hand, marijuana eases pain, but also it can make you vomit uncontrollably for months, as if those two things are in any way comparable. When you compare the millions of people that are helped by marijuana every day versus the rare occasions where people get the cyclical vomiting syndrome, and to act like those things are equal, and they happen to equal amounts of people, or try to imply that, or get others to infer that, I think is a bit disingenuous. As genetic modification and processing techniques advance, the cannabis industry is poised to make billions on something that bears almost no resemblance to marijuana humans have used for centuries. Of course, they go on to talk about, it's not your grandma's pot brownies, the old, very annoying cliche. The thing about THC increasing, it's always presented, at least by these people, as a negative, something that we just got to put up with because that's what greedy growers and marijuana people want. But really, it's a miracle of breeding and making something more effective, making a plant that was already effective more effective. See, when they breed for CBD, everybody gets all all cuddly and oh, it's great, and CBD, that's awesome. But when they breed for higher THC, it's like, oh, you evil hippie stoners. But THC helps a lot of people medically with pain and other things. They work together. You can look up the entourage effect. Dr. Sanjay Gupta's talked about it. Many people have talked about it. I'm not going to go into it right now. You can look it up. The entourage effect of cannabis. Short story, the notion that all of the cannabinoids and the chemicals work together to create a unique effect on the user. So when they breed for more CBD, those people are great. Well, the people who breed for more THC, those people are great too. They're doing great things. They're making improvements in their line of work, in their career, in their industry. So yeah, the cannabis is more effective. Okay, good. That's great, man. So anyway, they talk about the cyclical vomiting syndrome or the chronic vomiting, maybe associations with problems with brain development for early users of cannabis, which we've talked about before. Even if that is true, is not an argument against legalization. If you want to keep marijuana away from kids, we've seen it in the data. Youth use during the era of legalization is either staying steady or going down in states nationwide, however you measure it. Talk about some of the other cons. Talk a lot about the pros too. The strong evidence that cannabis is useful in chronic pain. They also say there is, however, no good evidence that weed is a gateway drug or that it makes you violent. And then, like alcohol or opioids, weed will not kill you unless you can smoke 2,000 joints in a sitting. I've tried. I never made quite that number. Quality research takes time, and the content of commercially available marijuana is changing at a blazing pace. We just don't know what these changes mean for the safety of weed. Here's the bottom line for all of this. The notion that some people have a problem with weed. Some people shouldn't smoke marijuana. Some people shouldn't use cannabis. They have bad reactions to it. They can't handle it. It makes them a worse person overall for whatever reason. None of us have ever said, hey, everybody should use cannabis. No. As a matter of fact, the less people that use cannabis, the more prices will come down. So that's better for those of us who do. But in any case, the point is the choice. You should have the choice. The notion that cannabis is not good for some people is in no way a way to justify making criminals of everyone who decide to use cannabis. To make that leap is ridiculous. Some people shouldn't use cannabis. Okay, more research. Yes, please. But the reason marijuana should be legal is not because it's safe or less dangerous than other substances. It doesn't matter. It's because the people who use, grow, sell, gift, consume, possess it are not infringing the rights of anyone else. Therefore, marijuana should be legal because these people are not committing a crime, and they shouldn't be criminalized because they're not infringing on the rights of anyone else. Whether it's safe, whatever. We can go in those arguments all day. I do here, 5 days a week. As I said, the arguments for legalization, if you want less kids to get it, legalize. You want more regulation? You want check IDs at regulated shops? Legalization. You want to undercut the black market? Legalization. Logic says that is so. The data that we've seen in the last 5 or 6 years says that is so. Teens, kids, adolescents use less. They have less access to marijuana under legalization. If that's something you want, get on board. We're all on board. We're on this train. We're all moving forward. Hop on. Wherever you feel comfortable hopping on, hop on. I could berate you for being against legalization, then you decide, hey, no, now I'm for it. I won't. Screw that. You're fine. Jump on board now. It's fine. We got to get this train across the finish line. I don't know. My train analogy fell apart, but you get my point. You can check out this article and, of course, every article and story we discuss in the description. The link will be in the description of this video. As I said, they talk about the vaping problems, another argument for legalization. But in the end, the fact that there's not been enough research on marijuana is not justification for criminalizing everyone. We all want more research. Yes, go do it. But in the meantime, we're going to stop criminalizing people for doing things that aren't crimes. And you may say, oh, well, it's going too fast. Well, too bad. Like I said, get on the train or watch it go by you. I brought it back. I brought the analogy back. Hop on the legalization train or watch it go by you. Bam. I'm going to end on that note. Thanks, everybody, for checking out the show. As I said, 5 days a week. Cannabis news on marijuanatimes.org. We're also on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. The Apple Podcasts, of course, if you want the audio version of the show. Thank you to Nature Side, nature-side.com, and their organic, all-natural pesticides. Thank you to all of you who watch and listen daily, weekly, whenever you watch, whenever you listen. It's awesome. Keep sharing the show, spreading the truth about cannabis with Cannabis News. Thanks for watching and listening today, and we'll see you next time right here on the aforementioned many times Cannabis News.